We saw this past summer at Pier 1 and Pier 6, decades of work to secure a park on the Brooklyn waterfront has begun to pay off in a very major way. Brooklyn Bridge Park is already providing extraordinary open space and recreational resources for New Yorkers. I'm extremely grateful to the folks who advocated over so many years to make it happen, to Regina Meyer and Nancy and to the city and the state and everybody at the table who has worked hard to get it where it is, and I look forward to working with all the stakeholders to help realize the full potential of Brooklyn Bridge Park in the years to come. Obviously, the most significant unanswered question we face now is how we'll pay for it and what the implications of the decisions that we make about that have for the design, development, access, maintenance, and usage of the park. As I've said many times in the past, I remain firmly opposed to building additional residential development inside the park. I believe that high-rise luxury buildings will narrow access to the park, that they'll detract not only from the landscape, but from the sense of openness, of publicness, that's at the very heart of what we saw this summer in the gorgeous set of public events that took place at Pier 1 and Pier 6 and on the connections, and what that park kind of really calls us to think about and see in the city and what it can and should be. I think there's too much risk that the park comes to feel like the backyard of a few wealthy Brooklynites, and that it really would set a bad precedent for diminishing public open space with residential development in our parks in general. Fortunately, I believe that there are viable alternatives that get us what we all want, which is the elaboration of what we saw this summer into a fully built-out park that pay for its maintenance and that don't require residential development. You're going to hear a lot of them tonight. Obviously the potential sale, transfer, disposition of the Watchtower properties creates some potential for new revenue as a shift from a not-for-profit owner to a for-profit owner, as some potential conversions from commercial to residential space, all of which will be substantially increased as a result of the value increase that the park is bring new revenue into the city. The park increment recapture proposal developed by Senator Squadron also would appropriately dedicate additional incremental revenues that will come to the city over time as property values rise in the neighborhood surrounding the park. There's also many opportunities within and adjacent to the park itself to develop park-appropriate concessions and other revenue-generating uses. Cities around the world, very much including New York City, have seen sort of dramatic improvements in the kind of creativity and value generation that can come from thoughtful and well-planned concessions that both generate revenue and add value to the park. And I hope one of the things that you'll do is ask some of those experts and consultants to really think about this space from that point of view. How could we maximize concession and other revenues that would add value to the park, and think about how to unlock the extraordinary creativity of the folks here and other folks in Brooklyn and the ideas that they'll have. That's just a few ideas. You'll hear more tonight. I'm confident that that you guys and others that you'll be able to reach out to will have many more. And I really would urge the members of the subcommittee in general, and especially those representatives of the mayor, to really consider these options and listen to the neighbors who have fought long and hard for the park in this neighborhood. And please don't allow preconceived notions of housing development to close your minds to the wide array of good options that you'll hear. When the transfer took place in the spring, it was publicly announced essentially as a transfer from the state to the city, and that what we were getting was a city park. Now, if it were a city park, that means part of the Parks Department, then the process that we're undertaking here would be a lot more involved. There would be a lot of steps of transparency and public participation. Would likely have to go through ULURP. If it was the alienation of parkland, it would require a vote of the state legislature. And while I think there's some important questions about governance structure, I'll save them for another day. For now, I'd simply urge you to ensure a level of transparency and community involvement that is at least equal to or even greater than those processes would involve. This is a good first step. Next week's hearing is going to be a good second step. Let's really build on them and have those spirit of community involvement and transparency really infuse this process as it moves forward. I really believe that by listening to the community, by working together to develop a package of alternatives, and by building on the great work that now is on the ground already, thanks to really visionary work, again, over decades by folks in this room, but also by the folks who got busy over the last year really making it happen, that it will be possible to meet our shared goals without residential development in the park and truly fulfill the extraordinary promise of Brooklyn Bridge Park.